This movie is an adventure thriller where Dr. Nate Samuels, the father, takes his two teenage daughters on a wild expedition to a jungle in South Africa. There, they are faced with a challenge of a beastly lion which transforms a recreational trip into a struggle for survival. Keep watching if you want to find out more about their thrilling trip into the wild. Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we'll be going through the 2022 movie Beast. It's time to recall. Let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. The movie begins with a scene in the wild where a group of men loaded with guns is moving deep into the jungle. All this time we hear some background squealing and a roaring of lions who are busy tearing and eating a zebra off its hanging body that got stuck in a trap. The group shoots down all the lions and after dragging their dead bodies, starts loading their bodies into a truck. While a few men are busy loading, others go even deeper into the jungle to hunt down more lions. The two men who we saw going in are named Abduya and Chipo. We see both are moving in with a light foot. However, as Abduya observes a paw print on the ground, suddenly Chipo goes missing from behind him, and Abduya starts to call out his name. Suddenly, Abduya also goes missing, and one of the men who is now done loading the truck goes on to search for his mates. Unfortunately, his foot gets stuck in the trap, and he gets suspended heads down with the tree. We then see a ferocious lion pounding at him. The next scene opens with the protagonist, Nate, dreaming about some women and children in the village, and as he wakes up, we see he is airborne in a small plane flying over African Peninsula. After he gets up, he asks the pilot if she said something to him, and then he goes to talk to his daughters Meredith and Nora and asks them to get close to the window and take a look around. Soon their plane lands, and while we see his daughters carry their stuff, they complain about the heinously hot weather. Now we see both the father and his daughters wait at a place that looks like a small waiting area around the landing strip. One of the daughters asks her father when the man who is supposed to pick them up will arrive. In no time, we see a safari jeep coming in, and then we see Nate greeting his friend Martin, who has come to pick them up. On their way to Martin's place, the daughters talk about their mother's village while looking out of the jeep's window. Martin tells them how he was a friend of their mother's before he introduced her to Nate. Next, we see them reach Martin's place, and after they are done unloading, they step into the house and Nate goes to see an old bike that stands in the yard. When Nate asks his daughter to go straight into the house, Nate thanks Martin for having them over. Martin mentions that he's been living the life of a bachelor, so his house is a mess right now. The daughters ask Martin about his Wi-Fi password, and he tells them that there is no Wi-Fi or mobile signals here. Then Nora and Meredith see the photos of their mother and start admiring her beauty. Now that we see that the dinner is ready, and Nate goes into one of the rooms where Meredith is unpacking and tells her that the dinner is ready and also asks her if she has everything. At the dinner table, Meredith shows the images that she captured from her camera to Martin. Then we see Nate, Meredith, and Nora sitting at the dinner table where Meredith complains about how Nate was unavailable for the family and how he neglected their sick mother in her last few days. Nate tries to explain himself, but Nora leaves the table weeping and Meredith follows. Nate goes to sit with Martin in the garden where they have some drinks, and Nate vents out to Martin about how he was not there for his family. He says that being a doctor, he could have done something to save his wife, but because of his negligence, he couldn't identify his wife's getting cancer, so he lost her. Now he is on the verge of losing his daughters too. Martin calms him by saying there was nothing he could do to change the outcome, so he should not be so harsh on himself. In the morning, we see all of them leave for a tour safari, and when Meredith asks what they are going to see, Martin replies, every sort of wonderful creature on Earth. Now they get to a point where a man named Benji is waiting for them to introduce them to a pack of lions who inhabit a pride hill. The children are surprised to see lions out in the open. Benji sets up his rifle, then Martin and Meredith accompany him while he goes close to the hill where the lions are. Two of the male lions come down to hug Martin, who, according to Benji, raised them since they were little cubs. While he is busy petting the male lions, he notices that one of the lioness's paws is injured, which looks like a bullet wound. Martin tells the daughters about illegal hunters called poachers who must have injured the lioness. He comes back to the jeep where Nate and Nora are standing and asks Benji to find a vet and get the lioness treated. Martin also offers Nate if he wants to take a closer look at the lions, which he denies, and now we see them going even further into the jungle. There they see bucks, giraffes, elephants, ostriches, and many other animals while Meredith captures the moment on her camera. Then they reach a village in the jungle where Martin advises them to be friendly with the villagers as they are good people. All of them enter the village and find no one, so they start looking around in order to find the villagers. Suddenly then, Martin gets into a hut where lots of dead villagers' bodies are lying all covered with scars and blood. Martin asks Nate to take his daughters away from there and tells Nate that these scars are from lion paws, but lions don't do such things. There is something wrong. Nate comes out of the hut to find Nora is missing. He keeps shouting her name until he hears her shriek and runs towards her, where he finds her standing near a dead woman and a hippo, all with the same scars and covered in blood. Nate brings her back, and now they are going forward to find out if any of the villagers are around and can help them know what happened over there. All this time, Martin is trying to communicate via his Jeep's radio. On their way, they encounter a man who is barely breathing and is all covered in blood, and in his fainted voice repeating the word devil. Martin takes his rifle and goes off track into the bushes to take a good look around. He advises Nate to stay close to his daughters and don't let them out of the Jeep. We also see Nate trying to save the man by pumping his chest, however, he dies. Martin has now reached the lake, and at the bank of it, he observes some pay signs in the mud. While all this, distant roars of a lion can be heard in the background. While he observes the paw, he goes a little further into the lake so he could see the other side of the lake. As he hears a slight moment behind him and he turns back, the scene shifts to the Jeep, and all we hear is the sound of a bullet shot. Hearing that, Nate gets out of the vehicle and goes into the bushes while shouting Martin's name. Nora and Meredith are in the Jeep, and now Meredith comes out. As Nate goes a bit further out of nowhere, a lion comes roaring. He turns back and starts running and shouts to tell Meredith to get in the car. He saves himself and jumps in the car. The lion is still there, and from one of the open windows of the Jeep, he gets his paw in. The scene gets a bit intense. Nate pushes his daughters towards the back of the Jeep and starts to hit the lion with his leg to get him away from the Jeep. Nate then asks Meredith, who is now in the driving seat, to take the steering and drive it away. She speeds up the Jeep and leaves the lion behind, but the Jeep hits the tree around a cliff and they get stranded. The daughters shout and scream out of fear. Nate, on the other hand, tries to calm them down by saying someone will come looking out for them. Suddenly, they hear the voice of Martin on the walkie-talkie, and Martin narrates the events that happened. He then tells Nate that he has been injured by the lion and has bled out a lot. Nate tells him how he can stop the bleeding and to stay wherever he is, and they will get him back to the car. Martin also tells them not to leave the car because the lion, who was staring at him for a while, is gone from there, and we are in the lion's territory, so it is not safe to get out of the vehicle. Nora mentions some tank rifle, so they get them out from the truck and assemble them. Martin tells them that it is of no use, but upon Nate's insist, he tells him how he could get a few hours if Nate hits the lion with a tranquilizing dart. Nate assembles the rifle and gets on top of the Jeep, but Meredith, who comes out of the Jeep to get Martin and save him, distracts Nate, and the lion once again comes at him. Nate gets under the Jeep to save himself from the attack because he had accidentally dropped the rifle. Seeing Nate stuck under the Jeep, Nora opened the window and hit the lion in the back with a spare dart. Meredith comes back with Martin, and Nate provides him a medical aid in the Jeep. Nate tells his daughter that they should conserve water because they are staying in the Jeep for a while. Late at night, while the girls are sleeping, Martin wakes up and tells Nate that he cannot do anything to help him or his girls, so the best thing they can do is wait in the car. He also tells him that the lion he encountered has gone rogue because he must have lost his pack to the poachers, and now he knows who his enemies are and where to attack. Nate dozes off and dreams of a village again, and this time he sees his wife, with fainted background voices of Nate saying, "Don't go, don't go." Soon he wakes up from the dream and they hear some communication on the radio. While they try and talk on the radio, a truck approaches with poachers in it. Nate gets out of the vehicle and tells them about what happened to them and why they are in the jungle right now. He tells them to get out of there in exchange for 5,000 American dollars. They agree to it initially, but one of the poachers opens the door and sees Martin lying in the Jeep and says he has killed 3 of his men, so he will kill them all, and while he tries to take away Nora, a lion comes out of the bushes and attacks them. All the poachers run after it in the jungle, and Nate checks the truck to see if they can get out of here using the truck. There are no keys in the truck, so Nate comes back and tells them they should stay in the Jeep while he will go into the jungle to get the keys. He said he knew the man who has the keys, so he will go into the jungle and get it back in no time. In the next scene, Nate is near the same lake where Martin was, and the lion senses some presence, so he is searching around. When the lion reaches the tree where Nate was, Nate hides by climbing up the tree. After searching for a while, we can see that the lion leaves. Nate finds the man who has the key. Then we see the lion attacking the Jeep again. This time he breaks one of the windows completely and tries to get in. Martin asks the girls to leave the car because it's going to topple over. The girls run out of the car, and then the car goes down the cliff. The lion stays down for a while, but gets up and tries to go back into the Jeep to attack Martin. The fuel in the car starts leaking due to the fall, and Martin lights himself up and the car in order to kill the lion. Hearing all the screams, Nate runs back to the girls where Nora tells him that the lion has harmed Meredith and she is injured. Nate goes near the cliff to look down at the flaming Jeep and the scene ends. Next, we see Nate and his girls leaving the jungle following the same path Martin took to go in. As they reach the Pride Rock where they saw the lions before they went into the jungle, Nate stopped the truck so he can reserve the fuel left and see how bad Meredith's wounds are. He took Meredith and Nora to a nearby abandoned school building to tend to Meredith's wound before she bleeds out. He clears the wound and goes out to find some water. Meanwhile, that beastly lion reaches the school building. Nora shouts out to call her dad and Nate goes running in. He fires his rifle to make the lion go away. Then he picks up Meredith and takes Nora along to a side room and locks them up. His girls keep insisting that he should not go, leaving them behind, but saying that he knows what he is doing and if he would not do anything right now. The lion will keep coming back to attack them. Then Nate goes away from the room and shouts to the lion to catch his attention and starts running. The lion follows him and pounds on him right when Nate reaches the Pride Rock. The ferocious beast starts scratching, tearing, and biting Nate all over his body. We can see the Pride Rock in the background while the lion attacks Nate. Seeing the beast attack Nate, the male lions of the Pride come running and attack the lion who is just about to tear Nate's hand off. The scene ends with Nate resting on a log while the Pride lions kill the beast. We can hear the fainting voice of Benji in the background while the scene fades out. When Nate wakes up, he is in a hospital with his girls around him. Meredith excitedly says to him that he made the lion run towards the Pride, so the Pride lions will see him as a threat to their pack and will kill him. In the last scene, Nate takes his daughters to the same tree where their mother had a picture, and using Meredith's camera, the three members of the family take their picture to honor their mother, and Meredith says, "This one is for Mother." The movie ends with the shutter click of the camera. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.